We're not going to America. We're not spending our money there. It's Canada first, babe.
Baseball fans to see the Blue Jays play in the U.S.
You won't believe what's quietly unfolding between two of the world's closest former allies. After the U.S. imposed tariffs on Canadian steel and aluminum, and President Trump declared that Canada should be the 51st state, a powerful wave of backlash erupted across Canada. In 2024 alone, more than 4 million flights from Canada to the U.S. were canceled, a staggering blow to many American states that rely heavily on tourism from their northern neighbor. And now, 10 of these states are on the brink of collapse, facing an unprecedented crisis. The United States and Canada were once considered the world's best friends, sharing the longest international border, a thriving trade relationship worth hundreds of billions of dollars annually, and millions of cross-border tourists each year. Canadians would flock to Florida to escape the cold, while Americans drove to Quebec to experience the vibrant fall foliage. But that once close bond is quietly unraveling, and the clearest sign of strain is the vanishing wave of Canadian tourists across America. 1. California. Tourists disappeared without a word. Not going to the US, not going to California anymore, and that's perfectly fine. For us, national dignity matters more than having fun in a country that looks down on us. That was the blunt response from Mrs. Smith, a Canadian interviewed by local media, and she's far from alone. California used to welcome nearly 1 million Canadian visitors annually, contributing billions of dollars to the state's $140+ billion tourism industry. But in the past 2 years, the landscape has shifted without warning. Bookings from Canada in cities like San Francisco and San Diego have dropped 28%, according to data from Visit California. At Fisherman's Wharf, souvenir shops are closing early. Tour buses are cutting routes due to dwindling passengers. It's not just about the exchange rate, although the Canadian dollar has lost 6.8% of its value against the US dollar over the past 12 months, making everything from coffee to hotel nights feel overpriced. More worrying is the growing sense of alienation. A 2025 survey by the Angus Reid Institute revealed that 63% of Canadians feel unwelcome in the US, especially in cities once known for their hospitality like Los Angeles and San Francisco. Many Canadians are walking away. On forums like Reddit and TripAdvisor, the phrase, "I'll never go back to the US," appears with increasing frequency. One user, Chloe H., wrote, "The last time I visited California, a border officer asked me outrageous, offensive questions. I spent nearly 5,000 CAD on that trip, and I swear I'll never return." This sentiment is spreading fast. According to Destination Canada, 42% of Canadians are now considering skipping the US altogether for their next vacation, the highest percentage in a decade. For California, which heavily depends on high-spending international visitors, this isn't just a warning sign. It's a potential early-stage crisis. A hotel employee in San Diego shared, "I haven't seen a Canadian tourist since last winter. They disappeared quietly, as if they were never here." California hasn't collapsed, but if it loses its most loyal and quietest visitors, it may soon face losses that are far harder to recover from. 2. Texas, over 400,000 Canadian tourists lost, and counting. "I've driven down to Texas every winter for 15 years, stayed in the same RV park, met the same friendly faces. This year, I stayed home." That comment, posted on Snowbird Exchange, a forum for Canadian retirees who winter in the US, quickly gained hundreds of likes and supportive replies. The consensus? Texas isn't what it used to be. Texas once welcomed over 1 million Canadian tourists annually, mostly during winter. But in the 2024-2025 season alone, the state lost at least 420,000 visits from Canada, according to the U.S. National Travel and Tourism Office and aggregated data from RV park associations. In Corpus Christi, Houston, and San Antonio, longtime snowbird favorites, RV parks are seeing rows of empty spaces. A park manager in Corpus Christi said, "Last year, we were fully booked from December to March. This year, a third of our western lots are completely empty." Economics clearly plays a role. U.S. inflation hit 4% in 2024, and gas prices in Texas at times surged past $4 per gallon, the highest since 2012, according to the U.S. Energy Information Administration. That makes the thousands of kilometers drive from Ontario or Manitoba a costly endeavor. But numbers don't tell the whole story. A 2025 Abacus data survey found that 58% of Canadians who traveled to the U.S. in the past 5 years now have little to no intention of returning to Texas, citing a shift in the social climate. Respondents pointed to tense politics, controversial immigration laws, and a sense of cultural disconnect. One user on CAA travel forums wrote, "I felt judged and out of place. It's not like it used to be. Now I choose Mexico or Portugal, where I feel genuinely welcomed." A limousine driver in Austin echoed the downturn. "I used to drive Canadian clients nearly every day in winter. Now the car sits idle for weeks. This season, my income has dropped nearly 50%. Shopping. The absence of Canadian tourists isn't just creating revenue gaps, it's altering the rhythm of life. Innkeepers, waitstaff, and small business owners at resort towns say they've lost more than customers. They've lost winter neighbors. A diner owner in San Antonio put it simply, "Losing them isn't just about money. It's like losing a part of the heartbeat of this place. Texas is still vast and sun-soaked, but this winter, the empty space between RVs isn't just physical. It symbolizes a growing distance between two communities once closely intertwined. And if those who once called it a second home now choose to leave quietly, perhaps it's Texas that needs to do some soul-searching first." These numbers are just the tip of the iceberg. Beneath them lie stories of disillusionment and mounting challenges yet to be reckoned with. 3. Shock. 1.7 million Canadian tourists retreat. The lights of Las Vegas begin to dim. Las Vegas used to be a favorite destination for millions of Canadians escaping the cold. With its endless neon lights, grand-scale shows, and 24/7 excitement, the city felt both exotic and familiar. Before 2025, an average of 1.7 million Canadians visited Nevada each year, the majority flocking to Las Vegas, according to data from the U.S. Travel Association. They didn't just come to play, they came to stay. Week-long or 2-week packages on the Strip used to be fully booked, helping maintain winter hotel occupancy rates above 90%. But according to the latest report from the Las Vegas Convention and Visitors Authority, LVCVA, in the first quarter of 2025, occupancy at major resorts dropped to just 52%, the lowest since 2011. The reasons go beyond financial concerns. Round-trip airfare from Toronto to Las Vegas now ranges from CAD 700 to 1,100, up nearly 30% from 2023. But behind the numbers is a deeper feeling of alienation and unease. A March 2025 independent survey by Ledger revealed that 65% of Canadians no longer feel welcome in the U.S., with Las Vegas among the top 3 cities most frequently mentioned. Reactions from the Canadian community are becoming more vocal. On CanadaSnowbirds.org, one user from Quebec wrote, "Vegas used to be paradise. Now I feel lost the moment I step out of the airport." Another commented bluntly, "I spent over CAD 5,000 on last year's trip, only to feel like an outsider. I'm not going back." The consequences are rippling outward. Housekeepers, restaurant servers, and tour drivers face cut hours and plummeting tips. "I used to remember every guest's name from Vancouver. Now all I remember are the empty rooms," said a waitress at the Bellagio. Las Vegas still glows at night, but its glow is fading from the eyes of those who once felt a deep connection with the city. The absence of Canadian tourists isn't just a revenue loss. It's an invisible void at gaming tables, in show seats, and in a tourism identity that was built on mutual friendliness and trust. 4. Upstate New York, region loses. Nearly 50% of tourism revenue as Canadians disappear. "We used to welcome them like family. The tourists from Ontario, Quebec," said Linda, owner of a small restaurant just minutes from the Thousand Islands border crossing. "Now the tables are empty, and we turn the lights off earlier than ever." Upstate New York was once a perfect weekend getaway for millions of Canadians, just a few hours' drive from Toronto or Montreal. But since the pandemic, that steady stream of visitors has been quietly fading. According to a 2025 report from the New York State Hospitality and Tourism Association, the number of international visitors, primarily Canadians, to New York's northern border region has dropped by 47% compared to pre-pandemic levels. This has come with a clear decline in service sector revenue, Restaurants, hotels, shopping centers, and entertainment venues have all reported losses. My revenue dropped by nearly half last year, Linda noted. 3 restaurants next to mine have closed. The whole block feels like it lost its heartbeat. Brielpo, rising prices have only made things worse. A ticket to Six Flags Great Escape now costs $112, more than 30% higher than in 2022. Car rental prices in the area are up over 25%, and a simple dinner for 2 now exceeds $80. With the Canadian dollar losing nearly 7% of its value against the US dollar over the past 12 months, per Bank of Canada data, the trip has become a financial burden for many Canadians. But it's not just about money. Many Canadians say they no longer feel welcome. On the Ontario Travels Forum, one user wrote, "I've gone to New York every year since 2005, but this year, I'm staying home. Everything feels colder, from the prices to the people." Another chimed in harshly, "I'm not coming back. There are too many places that make me feel more valued." Prolonged low hotel occupancy has forced many establishments to shut down temporarily during the off-season. Small towns like Watertown and Plattsburgh have petitioned the state government for more marketing and financial aid to support local businesses in an effort to salvage a tourism season that relies almost entirely on visitors from the north. Upstate New York is experiencing a quiet crisis, not loud or urgent, but profoundly deep. As the familiar faces from Ontario and Quebec stop showing up, the region isn't just losing revenue, it's losing a decades-long cultural bond, an invisible fracture that cuts far deeper than it seems. Let's continue exploring to better understand the far-reaching impact of this growing boycott. 5. Arizona. We're never coming back. According to the latest report by the North American Tourism Association, winter 2025 has brought a major shock to Arizona, a state once hailed as paradise for older Canadians. Rounds played on golf courses have dropped nearly 40%, and RV parks that were once fully booked are now operating at less than 30% capacity. It's a scene unseen in decades, leaving locals stunned and worried. Mr. Jack, manager of an RV park in Phoenix, sighed, "Last year, we welcomed hundreds of Canadian RVs every day. This winter, we barely see a few dozen. The vibe has completely changed. It's quieter, colder. Those familiar faces that once brought warmth to the region are disappearing as if they never existed. The causes aren't purely economic. The USD-CAD exchange rate has fallen nearly 7%. Travel insurance costs have risen 15%, and overall living expenses have made travel significantly pricier. But beyond the numbers is a wave of deep frustration. A survey by the North American Institute for Tourism Research found that 65% of Canadians now feel Arizona is no longer friendly. In fact, they describe it as hostile, particularly due to politicized policies on healthcare and personal freedoms. This isn't just about numbers, it's about emotion. On travel forums, many Canadian tourists express anger and disappointment. Mary from Ontario wrote, "I used to consider Arizona my second home, but now I'll never return. What they've done isn't just about losing customers, they've lost our respect." Another was blunt, "I'm never coming back. There are far better places for me." Local golf course staff feel the loss as well. They used to be like family, old friends. Now their absence makes this place feel empty and joyless. Arizona, long a winter haven for hundreds of thousands of older Canadians, now stands on the brink of losing its most loyal visitor base. The once bustling season filled with laughter and warm conversations has given way to silence and emptiness, prompting a serious question. Can the state regain the trust and standing it once had, or has it lost its cherished winter home for good? 6. Washington lost over 40% of cross-border visitors, communities shaken. It may be hard to believe, but Washington, once an indispensable destination for British Columbians, especially Vancouverites, has now fallen eerily silent to an alarming degree. Every weekend, my family used to drive across the border to Washington for shopping, dining, or just to take a stroll, said Emily, a Vancouver resident. Now, I no longer feel comfortable or at ease even thinking about it. Recent data from the Canada Border Services Agency, CBSA, and U.S. Customs and Border Protection, CBP, show that private vehicle crossings at checkpoints like Peace Arch, Blaine, and Sumas have dropped between 35% and over 45% in the past 3 years. Before the pandemic, more than 700,000 Canadians visited Washington each year, mostly from the lower mainland. But that number has now fallen to just over half. The ripple effects are spreading quickly. In Blaine, once busy farmers markets are now nearly deserted. Gas stations, convenience stores, and malls like Bellis Fair in Bellingham have suffered sharp revenue declines. I used to sell 1,000 cups of coffee a week. Now it's fewer than 400, said Mark, owner of a small shop near the border. We used to rely on Canadians. They were regulars, kind, and generous. The economic factor is undeniable. The Canadian dollar has lost nearly 7% of its value against the US dollar in the past year, driving up costs for everything, from gas and food to shopping. In Whatcom County, gas prices have at times exceeded $4.20 per gallon, nearly 40% higher than the average in British Columbia. But the real turning point for many Canadians lies in the experience itself. Border procedures have become increasingly complex. Average wait times at Peace Arch now exceed 45 minutes on weekends, coupled with stricter documentation requirements. Just for a few hours in the US, I have to prepare like I'm going overseas, wrote one Vancouver traveler on Reddit. Long waits, intense inspections, it doesn't feel welcoming anymore. Many Canadians are speaking bluntly. We used to think of Washington as our familiar backyard, Emily continued, but now I'd rather stay in British Columbia or go somewhere else. I don't want to feel like a stranger in a place I used to love. In response, local businesses have repeatedly petitioned both state and federal governments to simplify border processes, improve the visitor experience, and restore a friendly message to northern travelers. We don't need ads, we need kindness and ease. That's how to bring them back, Mark emphasized. However, the picture doesn't end there. Other states are facing similar shifts. 7. Michigan, a bustling border state, loses nearly 1 million Canadian visitors. Michigan was once an essential stop for millions of Canadians, especially Ontarians, seeking shopping, leisure, and exploration. Ferry rides across Lake Erie and Lake Michigan were packed every weekend, bringing a steady flow of spending to local inns, restaurants, and border retail. Prior to 2025, Michigan welcomed around 3 million Canadian visits annually, a sizable figure for a state heavily dependent on cross-border tourism. Every weekend we were fully booked, and you couldn't find a seat in any restaurant, recalled Tom, owner of a long-standing inn near the Monroe Ferry Dock. We used to host annual cultural festivals with thousands of people. That energy kept our community alive for decades. But since 2025, everything has changed. According to U.S. Customs and Border Protection, Canadian visits through ports of entry and ferries have fallen from 3 million to around 2 million, a loss of nearly 1/3 in under 3 years. Some ferry lines, such as Pelee Island Leamington, have had to cut back operations or shut down entirely during off-peak seasons. Travelers are gradually changing habits, shifting to domestic destinations or canceling trips altogether. The impact is visible on every corner. Average occupancy at lakeside inns has dropped to around 60%, while many restaurants along the I-75 corridor have shortened hours or closed permanently. Festivals once packed with attendees are now either canceled or scaled down due to lack of both funding and audience. The worsening exchange rate hasn't helped. The Canadian dollar has lost nearly 7% of its value against the USD over the past year, making everything from meals to gas more expensive for northern visitors. But the more stubborn challenge lies in non-economic barriers. Increasingly tedious border procedures, ID checks, health declarations, and long waits have turned a once simple trip into a burdensome ordeal. I used to think of Michigan as my backyard, one traveler from Windsor posted online. Now the journey is exhausting, the red tape frustrating, and the cost too high. I'm looking elsewhere. This sharp drop in tourism is creating deeper ripple effects. The once close relationship between Michigan and Ontario is cooling, leaving behind a hard-to-fill gap in cultural exchange, commerce, and community spirit. We used to be a community built on mutual connection, Tom said quietly. Now, it's not just the revenue we've lost. We've lost the familiarity, the joy, and the very reason this border region thrived. 8. Maine, the absence of Canadian visitors jolts local tourism. Every summer, I used to bring my whole family to Maine to enjoy the fresh air and beautiful coastal views. said Claire, a Canadian tourist from Quebec with visible tension. But now, I don't want to go back. What Trump did made us feel insulted, and we don't need to bow down to anyone. Maine was once considered a promised land for nature-loving Canadians, lakeside cabins, harbors dotted with sailboats, and coastal shops bustling with both French and English-speaking visitors. On average, the state welcomed more than 500,000 Canadian tourists annually, primarily from Quebec and New Brunswick. For many coastal towns, that number wasn't just a stat, it was a lifeline. Yet, in 2025, that vibrant rhythm began to noticeably slow. Along Casco Bay, many sailboats that once had packed weekend bookings now sit idle at the docks for weeks. Vacation camps in Rangeley and Moosehead are no longer full, with some shortening service seasons or shutting down altogether, even during peak months. Handicraft shops in downtown Bar Harbor now close as early as 5 p.m., not because they're sold out, but because there's no reason to stay open. Rising costs are part of the problem. As of April 2025, fuel prices in Maine have increased by 27% compared to 2023, directly impacting boat rentals and transportation services. Lodging costs at lakeside resorts have gone up by an average of 17%, and meals at coastal seafood restaurants, once the crown jewel of Maine tourism, have risen by 15%. During the same period, the Canadian dollar fell by 6.8% against the US dollar, making trips feel no longer worth the price for visitors from Quebec or Halifax. But the numbers don't tell the whole story. In recent surveys by the Maine Office of Tourism, up to 28% of Canadian respondents said they no longer felt as welcome as before. Changes in entry policies, stricter attitudes at the border, and a shift in the general atmosphere have made many Canadians think twice. Claire, a retired teacher from Montreal, recalled, "I'd been coming to Maine nearly every summer for 15 years, but last year, for the first time, I went home early." Local tourism officials aren't denying the challenge. Some coastal communities have cut back on promotional budgets to redirect resources into improving visitor experience, from service quality to simplifying check-in protocols. An informal campaign with the slogan, "We miss you," is being posted by small businesses along major routes like Route 1. For Maine, natural beauty has never been the problem. What's missing now is a sense of belonging, that special something that brought hundreds of thousands of Canadians back each year without needing a map or a reason. The state now stands at a difficult crossroads. Wait for recovery to come on its own, or actively rebuild a relationship that once formed the foundation of its economy and culture. A foundation that money alone can't replace, and once lost, is incredibly hard to restore. 9. South Carolina, Myrtle Beach, and the alarming disappearance of Canadian snowbirds. Myrtle Beach used to be a paradise for hundreds of thousands of Canadian snowbirds, those who flocked to warmer coastal destinations to escape the harsh winter. During peak seasons, beachfront resorts, golf courses, and restaurants here were always packed, with Canadians making up a significant portion of the crowd. However, 2025 has seen a dramatic downturn. Winter booking cancellations surged by up to 40%, forcing many businesses to scale back operations. Major resorts slashed room rates to attract guests. Golf courses reduced operating hours due to the lack of players, and restaurants along the beach laid off staff to cut costs. On social media, complaints from Canadian tourists have come like a tidal wave of frustration. One commenter wrote bluntly, "There's no friendliness left like before. Immigration policies are getting more frustrating, and the entry process takes an entire day." BU. Another fumed. Car rental and insurance prices have skyrocketed. It feels like I'm managing a business, not on vacation. A final bitter remark closed the thread. "I used to love Myrtle Beach like home. Now it just feels like I'm being pushed out the door, completely unwelcome." The cause isn't just economic. Tighter immigration controls and new regulations around personal data and privacy have made many Canadian visitors uncomfortable, even angry. On top of that, car rental prices have gone up by an average of 18%, travel insurance by 22%, and airfare by about 15% compared to last year. All these factors have driven up travel costs, diminishing Myrtle Beach's appeal. Still, experts and local communities agree. Myrtle Beach doesn't need to change its core identity. The blue waters, white sands, and friendly atmosphere have always been its strength. What it needs now is a return to the spirit of openness, welcoming guests with warmth and joy, just like the old days. Rebuilding trust and reconnecting with Canadian travelers is seen as a critical step if Myrtle Beach hopes to revive its economy and retain its place as a favorite winter destination for snowbirds in the near future. 10. Florida. If you think Florida is still a paradise for Canadian tourists, think again. If you still believe Florida holds the same appeal for over 3.5 million Canadian visitors each year, the 2024-2025 winter season might make you think twice. The number of Canadians coming to Florida has dropped by over 40%, leaving many vacation homes and upscale resorts with empty rooms, while numerous eateries and tourist-focused shops have either shut down or cut back their hours. These figures aren't just dry statistics, they are a wake-up call for Florida's famed winter tourism industry. Local business owners report that the absence of Canadian tourists hasn't just hurt revenue, but has also drained the vibrant, energetic atmosphere that once defined the Florida experience. The reasons go beyond any single factor. Soaring travel and medical insurance costs have made Canadians more cautious when planning a Florida trip. On top of that, rising safety concerns and the increasing frequency of extreme weather, major hurricanes, oppressive heat waves, have altered the overall travel experience. Many have shifted to newer, safer, and more pleasant destinations like Mexico or Portugal. Disappointment is echoing across social media. Florida isn't the place I used to know. Costs have skyrocketed, and the harsh weather makes vacations less enjoyable, one Canadian lamented. Another added, "My family has switched to Mexico. It just feels safer and more comfortable." If Florida no longer has room for the very people who once cherished it, then perhaps that paradise is slowly vanishing from the hearts of its most loyal visitors. The challenge now isn't just winning tourists back, it's about preserving and reviving what once made Florida special, so that it remains not just a destination, but a beloved second home in the hearts of longtime Canadian travelers. Millions of Canadian tourists, once loyal big spenders, are withdrawing from U.S. states like Washington, Florida, Michigan, and South Carolina. This decline isn't solely due to economic factors or exchange rates, but also stems from stricter entry regulations, rising costs, and a growing sense of not feeling welcome. Many resorts, restaurants, and local shops are facing sharp drops in revenue, some even shutting down altogether. Border communities and businesses are calling for change, hoping to welcome tourists with greater friendliness and more streamlined entry procedures. Can these states revive their once thriving tourism industries? Or is this the beginning of a new era, one in which Canadians no longer see the U.S. as a top destination? The truth is, the impact of this boycott is far greater than most people realize. If you found this video interesting, don't forget to like and subscribe so you won't miss out on our upcoming content. Share your thoughts in the comments below. Thank you for watching. And remember, what we present here is for reference and analysis from multiple perspectives. Be sure to consult other sources for a more complete and objective view.